So Somalians are trying to drag Black Americans into their fight. Check this out.
But Trump based his order on a report whose author has made it clear that his goal is to denaturalize and deport as many Somali Americans as possible. This is not about crime. It's not about safety. This is about purging people like me from this country. Minnesota has always been a welcoming place for people fleeing a home country that is battered by war, poverty, and hunger. Europeans in the 19th and 20th century, Black Americans from the South, Hmong.
That was a call for allyship, and they threw the race card out there. We're all black. What happened to I'm not black, I'm Somalian? And what happened to the call of allyship when y'all was scamming Minnesota out of hundreds of millions of dollars? They only pull out the race card when it's beneficial to them, because before this, they'll tell you, you're jealous because Somalians are driving Priuses. And there's no allyship when they taking advantage of all these government assistance programs. HUD, public housing, they're not going to let you in their building that they're in. And these are the same people that will tell you, if you Black American Somalians will say, hey, my people came over here in planes and your people came over here in shackles and chains. Keep that same energy. I respect that. Since me and my peoples came over here in shackles and chains in a ship, I'm porting my ship right here. This is where I'm going to port my ship. Don't use black as a race card. Don't use black when it's beneficial. Keep that same energy. You not black, you Somalians. You not black, you Nigerians. Keep that same energy. Because when it's time to benefit off these government programs, like housing, all that stuff, they lock other people out. They don't care about nobody else but their own people. So why you yelling allyship now?
And now I'm understanding, and you're going to look at, I hear they ripped off Somalians. Ripped off that state for billions of dollars, billions, every year, billions of dollars, and they contribute nothing. The welfare is like 88%. They contribute nothing. I don't want them in our country, I'll be honest with you. Okay? Somebody say, oh, that's not politically correct. I don't care.
What I'm witnessing right now with the Somalians out there in Minnesota and all the issues that they're dealing with Trump and deportation, is a prime example. Their response to it is a prime example of why FBAs call Black immigrants tethers. I'm sorry, I'm not one to use that word, but I can see what they mean, because the tether means to attach yourself to something. And right now I see a lot of Somalians who have never considered themselves Black attaching themselves to Black Americans as a way of deflecting what's happening to them and saying like, oh, we're all Black and he's doing the same thing to us because we're Black, just like Black Americans. Listen to this.
President Trump and the base that is attacking our community. We understand that you are here to divide us, to create fear amongst us, and to selectively target the blackest immigrant and Muslim community in this great state. President Trump has had a history of targeting Black people long before he ever ran for any office.
Yeah, Trump targeted Black people. We all know that. But when y'all came here to this country, Black people was like, oh, good, with more Black people, you know, come with us. And we tried to show you what it was like here. We tried to explain to you what was going on, and we were rejected. Like, let's not rewrite history. I know what happened. Y'all made your own communities. Y'all said you had your own culture, separate from us. So now that you're in trouble, you want to claim Blackness? You want to say that Trump already was targeting Black people? Us? He wasn't targeting you then. You're not Black, right? Like, it's a tether. That's a tether. That right there. If you ever wondered what a tether was, that.
See, identity is never as solid as people believe it is, you know. Sometimes, if you don't know who you are, the chances of becoming who you are not are very high. If you don't know who you are, whatever someone calls you, that is what you become, right? So the situation I'm telling you right now, the analogy I'm giving you right now, is an analogy that is very, very similar and is very, very relatable to the situation of Somali people and the Black people. For many times, the Somalis have come up front. They have even spoken to the media, and they have confessed many times, not just once, that they are not black people, right? They have confessed that they are people of Arab ancestry, but not black. So anything tying them to black has been something which is like a vice, you know. A vice is a bad virtue, right? So they've refused any relations with black people until now. Trump and the Minnesota cases, you know, Trump went digging for some issues, you know, and while he was digging, he discovered that the Somalis have been robbing money from the system, you know. There's evidence out there that the Somalis have been committing fraud against the US government for a very long time, pretending that they are going to help children with autism. Instead, that money was being pumped into terrorist groups, and some of that money also was being used to fund real estate development, you see. So we've had all that. And so Trump has been hard on the Somalis, and right now they've come up front and they're saying, okay, blacks, we are sorry. We share the same struggles with you. We want you and us to come together and fight together, right? So my question is this: why is it that during the time that you are enjoying, you don't want to be related with me, but now that you are suffering, you want to be related with me? You see, that is a lack of integrity.
Arab communities need help. Somalis show up immediately in the name of religion, unity, and the Ummah. Somalis are currently facing political attack, and they're asking, where is the Ummah? Yes, the Somali community are having this conversation, and they're quickly realizing Arabs support Arabs, South Asians support South Asians, Turks support Turks. Every culture protects its own first. Yes, Somali community are now asking the hard question. Why, when Somalis are being attacked or Somalis suffering, not treated as religious emergency, while Somali support for others is always demanded under the banner of faith first? What? The truth is this: the Ummah exists spiritually, not politically, not economically, not in action. Yeah. So to the Somalis who say Muslim first, Somali second, what's your thought in this?
We are here for you. We are absolutely here. We are at your back. We are at your side.
oo fariimahan dadka watay aad iyo aad u mahadsan yihiin. How are you doing? Welcome, madam.
Somali people, come to the front of the classroom because I need to see. Are y'all okay? We need to check on y'all. Okay, because, you know, I just saw a video on the news about a Somali guy who was quite particularly upset about some of the things that the current president said about the Somali people because, you know, he just didn't understand because he voted for him. Ooh. Then I also just saw a video with a whole bunch of Somali community leaders urging people to vote for that same president, you know, prior to him getting into office. So apparently there's a large group of Somali people who are on that side of the coin and who helped get that side of the coin in office. But now those same people are crying and looking to others all sad and defeated because that same administration don't want to fool with them. Now, this is quite perturbing and quite confusing because, you know, these are some people of a certain hue who sit up and have called people of this same hue that are, you know, African American, the N-word with the hard ER. You know, they tried to separate themselves and say that they are not black. They're from the Horn of Africa. They're not African. They're a whole nother race and stuff. So basically they separated themselves from African American people, say that they are not African, and, you know, they've cut ties with the community and felt like, you know, they were part of the other side and voted against their own self-interest, and now they are upset and they're crying and they don't understand and they're looking for sympathy. But I only have one word, FAFO, or is that a word or acronym? One acronym, FAFO, Crimea River. Because at the end of the day, like you and other brown communities who feel like they are not black, don't want to be associated with anything black, but they are seen black or other by the majority. And when they are seen like that, then they want sympathy. Who do you want sympathy from? I'm just wondering, are you asking for sympathy from us, or are you asking sympathy from the majority? Because at the end of the day, the majority is laughing at you because they used you, because they understand that you don't want to be associated with anything with blackness when that's all you are and that's all that they see. So I'm sorry, who's supposed to feel sorry for you?
So you had this situation online where it's African Americans versus black immigrants. You have this, popular online movement, FBA, and I've done multiple videos about them. And that movement foments hatred, it foments division among black people. And so the recent example that we have is this situation involving statements that President Trump made against the Somalian people in America. He basically said that they are garbage and he doesn't want them in America. He wants them to leave America. He went on to say that their country stinks. He went on and on to make these disparaging remarks, and he basically said the Representative Omar is garbage as well. And so there have been some videos that African Americans have done where they have pointed out like statements that Somalians have made when it comes to being black, for instance. There are multiple videos on social media where Somalians say that they're not black. They try to distinguish themselves from other African people by saying that they're not black. And then also I saw a video of this imam basically complaining about African Americans and making disparaging remarks about African Americans. This is an imam. You're supposed to believe in the brotherhood of humanity and stuff in Islam. But instead of promoting brotherhood, this man promoted prejudice and bigotry against African Americans by referring to, basically saying that African Americans don't know who their fathers are, that most of African Americans are products of one-night stands. Total nonsense, total garbage, total propaganda. And then you also had a video clip of these Somalians rallying behind Trump before these controversial remarks were made. They attended this pro-Trump rally where they're talking about they support Donald Trump. And then you had this other guy that did a recent interview on CNN responding to these statements that Donald Trump made. A Trump supporter, the Somalian Trump supporter. And so some people are using those video clips to basically say, well, we don't care what happens to Somalian immigrants. We don't give a damn about them since they don't care about us. And I think that this is what people like Donald Trump want to see. They want to see people of color fighting each other instead of fighting Donald Trump. They love to see that. They love to see black people at each other's throats. When the fact of the matter is, this white man doesn't make these same distinctions that we make. He doesn't see any difference between Somalians and African Americans. When the police stop you and harass you and brutalize you, they don't ask you what nation you come from, what your nationality is. They don't give a damn about that. They didn't give a damn about Amadou Diallo or Abner Louima being immigrants. They don't care nothing about that. There are multiple examples of black immigrants that are treated just like African Americans. So we need to stop this infighting. And it's a product of ignorance that's being promoted on both sides. Ignorance that's being promoted among immigrants to look down upon African Americans, and ignorance among African Americans to despise other black people. Ignorance perpetuated by groups like FBA, which is probably a MAGA Trump front organization. It's pro-MAGA. They defend MAGA while they have all these horrible things to say about Obama.
and Kamala Harris, and they're being exposed for the right-wing movement. They are imitation white supremacists, and it's just sad to see people on both sides playing into this bitter conflict. Now, it's one thing to expose the fact that some of these immigrants have effed around and they found out. You know, some of them supported Donald Trump, and now they're finding out how foolish that was to do. And it's right for people to point that out. But it's one thing to point that out, and it's quite another thing to tell people that you don't care if they get deported, you don't care what happens to them. Because the fact of the matter is the same ICE agents that harassed the immigrant community are the same ICE agents that came to Chicago and harassed black people, black American people. These ICE agents are racially profiling people, and black people are caught up in that racial profiling that's going on. Just as Donald Trump, hates these Somalian people, he also said that there are other countries that fit that same description. And we know about the statements that he made about African countries, calling them shithole countries, called Haiti shithole country. But yet and still we're fighting with each other. And if he looks upon our motherland of Africa as being a shithole, what do you think that he thinks about you as a black man? So I just think that it's time for us to end the ignorance and end the infighting and unite against a common enemy. And the fact of the matter is those video clips that we've seen of Somalians saying this and that, those don't necessarily reflect the views of most Somalian immigrants. Just because we saw some people on stage with Donald Trump, that doesn't mean that most of the Somalian people rallied behind Donald Trump or supported Donald Trump. As we know, Representative Omar is a Democrat elected from a majority Somali population. So, yeah, I just had to say this, man. We should not allow ourselves to play into division against one another. The immigrants and African Americans and other marginalized people need to unite against a common enemy. And that common enemy is Donald Trump, MAGA, and white supremacy.
Human space, this is something I've been really meaning to say, and I'm so glad that I can finally articulate it to you guys. So I'm Somali. I grew up in Minnetonka. I've been raised here my entire life. I am born here and I've lived here. I've studied here. I'm a pre-med. I do research, and that's usually the type of stuff I talk about on my page. But right now I feel like it's really important for me to say this. What I'm going to say is that I have been getting so many messages telling me to go back to your country, go back to your country. But the reality of the situation is the United States is the only country I've ever known my entire life. And the thing is, the great irony of it all is I'm not the ambassador of Somalia. I don't speak for Somali people. I'm not a spokesperson for this community. I'm just one young person trying to study, navigate life, and live like any other 20-something-year-old living here in this state. And so something that I feel like is going on is that there's a lot of immigrant people and first-gen, second-gen kids like me, with this weight on our shoulders, trying to explain everything going on in our communities, trying to defend our communities. But I'm really no different from any other 20-something-year-old trying to make it here in this state, in this country, in this world. And so I'm sharing this because I really feel like a lot of us are being treated this way and dealing with this quietly. But the reality is we aren't symbols. We aren't some type of ambassador. We are just human beings.
Yeah, I think that that's one perspective. But the other perspective is, you're just collateral damage from the bad decisions that was made, possibly from your family, depending on how they got here. Because we still have to ask the question, right? This young woman who, you have to love and respect the fact that they were able to articulate themselves and communicate clearly about what their plight is and what's happening over in the Somali community, which she's not necessarily saying anything that we don't already know, that people that are born here inside of the United States of America, especially ones that receive birthright citizenship, meaning that their parents may not necessarily be from here, and they may have come over here either illegally or temporary protective status, but it doesn't mean that it justify the fact that we are leveraging laws that were meant for American descendants of slaves, people that did not ask to be here, and them receiving birthright citizenship should not have been extended over into people that are just normally born in the United States of America, regardless of what their circumstances are. So while I acknowledge that we should make sure that we accommodate people that are legally here in the United States of America as citizens, you can't blame people that then speak loudly about the fact that we should be putting Americans first and the people that are here already, instead of advocating for and allocating our tax dollars for people that came over here illegally. I'm not really sure what hurt.
Yo, what's this conspiracy or theory that Somali people do not like black people? I refuse to believe it, because I've got a lot of Somali friends, and I'll tell you now, bro, they're probably the best bunch of friends I have. They're funny, they're loyal, they're everything you can ask for in a friend. But you see online, I've been seeing other Somali people claim, oh, they're not black, or they're not African, or like they'll call us black people Jerez. I don't even know what Jerez means to this day, but I've been called a Jerez numerous times, and I know it's not a nice thing. And what's this theory? Do Somali people like black people or not? I don't know. I genuinely want to know. Like, I hope my Somali friends are not pretending to like me, bro. Bro, one time I posted a video about we want rapes on Somali women, yeah? I promise you I didn't even say anything. If anything, I was complimenting the culture, bro. And the comments, bro, everyone's calling me a jire, calling me a monkey. I would post the comments, but the video will probably get flagged. But what's this theory? Do Somali people like black people or not? I genuinely want to know. Before you lot start abusing me in my comments again, I've not done anything, bro. I just want to know. Please, like, have mercy on me.
Now, I want y'all to take a look at this. This right here is a breakdown of how much time each of these networks right here have spent on what I believe is supposed to be the biggest story in America right now. Yeah. See, when a current sitting governor, the commander-in-chief of Minnesota, is caught up in a multi-billion-dollar fraud, embezzling taxpayer dollars in order to siphon that money into the pockets of illegal immigrants, or specifically, an 80 percentile of Somalians who are being paid by the government to chill. Yeah, when that whole thing gets exposed, according to ABC, CBS, and NBC, aka the mainstream propaganda machine, that is considered a non-story. And by the way, for anybody who's trying to call this whole thing racism, go ask a black American about how they feel about this one.
Child, the comment section on the video I made about the Columbus, Ohio Somali fraud is epic. Go read the comment section. First of all, let me address something. I got a whole bunch of people talking about, well, you need to go make videos. You need to take pictures. Child, do I look like Eyewitness News to you? Do I look like a private investigator? And do I look like I can fight pirates? I cannot. And therefore, I will not be putting myself in harm's way. If you want to know what's going on, you come see for yourself. Or read the comment section. People from Columbus, Ohio are all up and down that comment section talking about, yep, she's right. I've seen it for myself. I agree. Columbus is horrible. You please come and help us in Columbus. They are all up and down the comment section, but so are people from all around the country, from other parts of the country where this exact same Minnesota fraud is going on in their community. And they are begging for ICE and fraud investigators to come help them as well. So, honey, you don't need pictures. Read the comments. You know I'm telling the truth. With that being said, the best thing about my comment section are the comments from the Somalis. Child, they are laughing at us, saying we just jealous because we don't know how to work the system the way they do. They are admitting to the fraud. They are saying stuff like this is their land. They were promised the United States of America, and so they are taking it and taking it over. Go read the comment section, honey. It's better than the video.
You don't have to read the comment section. I have some clips for you today. Hit the like button, share the video, subscribe to the channel. And to the first clip, the opening clip there, don't you find it suspicious that mainstream media is not covering a story where a sitting governor, under his watch, 6.5, upwards of $8 billion has gone missing due to fraud? And mainstream media has decided not to cover it? Don't you find that suspicious? Let's keep going in this video. Hit the like button, share the video, subscribe to the content.
You know, like the racists are.
We are Somalis, not black. There, I said it. All right, everyone is keep asking, why don't Somalis want to identify as black? It's simple. The term black was never a word to begin with. Yeah. The term black, it didn't come from Africa. It came from America. Hello. Right? It was designed to separate slaves from Europeans. It was not designed to celebrate identity. It was to control it. Yeah. So when Somalis came to the West, we didn't suddenly become black. We were labeled. All right? Imposed. And we embrace it. Chill like that. Chill like that. Sheesh. Somalis had identity before race. All right? Our identity comes from our ancestors, not appearance. Yeah. All right? Blackness is a Western category. Somalia is a civilization. Big difference. We're Somalis. Chill like that. Chill like that. What's your thoughts on this?
So let's dive into this discussion in depth. Let's understand why, first of all, why are the Somalis, why were they refusing that they are not black people, you know? That's a very serious accusation. It's a very serious claim, not accusation. You see, as I told you earlier, identity is never as solid as people believe. Identity is a house that is built from stories told over centuries. Stories that have been repeated until they feel like truth. When we look at the question of why Somalis reject black origins and instead claim Arab ancestry, we are not simply examining a historical mistake or a sociological confusion. We are confronting a story that has been built, it has been repeated, it has been broken, again it has been rebuilt, and then it has been twisted and placed in front of the mirror so many times that the reflection no longer matches the body standing before it, you know. So a question that you might ask yourself is, where did this narrative come from? You see, what work does it do, you know? And who benefits from believing in this false narrative? Because it is a false narrative. You see, the Somali identity, like all identities, is a text written with many authors. Religion, clan lineage, trade history, colonialism, oral tradition, and modern politics. But a strange thing happens when a text is written by too many hands. You see, pieces begin to contradict each other. On one page, Somalia is described as an ancient Cushitic African civilization. On another page, Somalis are said to descend from noble Arab migrants who crossed over from Yemen. You see? And in the margin, colonial writers call Somalis the Hamites. The Hamites, if you are someone who understands the Bible, Ham was one of the sons of Noah, and he was the son who was cursed, you know. So writers are calling Somalis the descendants of the cursed son, you know, of Noah. So they are Hamites, which means that they are almost Caucasian, but not Caucasian, you see, and they are also not black, you know. So they are in between. These contradictions were never resolved. They were never woven together, you know. And this is why a deep critical analysis is important for us to sit with these contradictions, for us to sit through these contradictions and to analyze each and every one. Now, the rejection of black identity is not the result of a single cause. It is a collision of forces. The first one, it is the desire for prestige. The second is the legacy of oral genealogies. The third, it is the influence of Islam and Arab culture. The fourth is the scars of racism within Africa. And the fifth one, it is the colonial systems that rewarded proximity to whiteness or Near Eastern identity, you see? So refusing black people, it's advantageous to them, you know? They get that prestige, you know? And also, it is a legacy of oral genealogies. Oh, you know, your parent came from here, your grandfather, your great-grand-sister, such kind of conversations are what we call legacies of oral genealogies. Just because one of you, or one of your descendants, or one of your grandparents or ancestors was from Middle East, you now want to call yourself not black, you know. Another thing is the influence of Islam and Arab culture. You see that prestige that comes with being an Arab, you know, those Arabs have money. You get the logic, you see? And also the fourth one is the scars of racism within Africa. Blacks are always equal to racism subjects, right? Or racism objects. Another one is colonial systems that rewarded proximity to whiteness. So they want to be very close to the colonizer, you know. Now, looking at all these, we come to discover that identity becomes a layered manuscript where Africa is written in faint ink and Arabia is stamped in bold letters, you know. So what is the function of Arab ancestry as a social capital? To understand why Arab ancestry is claimed, we must see it as capital, not money, but status, you know. In Somali culture, as in many other Muslim world, lineage tied to the Arabian Peninsula is considered noble. Lineage from the Prophet's companion or from early Muslim migrants gives a person not only pride, but moral legitimacy. Oh, I'm close to where Muhammad was born. You get it? So, you are in East Africa, but you want to claim so far away over there. By all means, it's okay. By the way, this video is not against no one. I have Somali friends, I love them. They are good people. I have interacted with them on one-on-one level, but we have to teach one another. So, looking at this prestige of being an Arab, we come to uncover that Arab ancestry therefore becomes a ticket to dignity. You see? Arab ancestry also becomes a shield against being considered less civilized. Arab ancestry also becomes a claim to religious purity. Arab ancestry also becomes a story of superiority within the region, you see? So we need to ask ourselves one question. Is this ancestry an actual historical fact, or is it a symbolic currency? Right? Most genetic studies show overwhelmingly Cushitic African origins. The Somalis are of Cushitic African origins with minor, keyword is minor, Arabian admixture. You see? Yet the symbolic ancestry remains powerful because it provides social meaning but not scientific truth. You see? Thus, Arab origin functions as a metaphor for nobility, not a genealogical record, you know? We need to look at this case also at the perspective of the colonial mirror, you know? What others name you and when others name you. Colonial anthropology has played a critical role in shaping Somali identity. Europeans classified Africans according to racist hierarchies. Nilotes were primitives. Bantus were of low status. Cushitic groups like Somalis were Hamites, almost whites, but superior Africans. That is the way the white man, or rather the colonizer, categorized us. You see? These categories, however, were not scientific. They were fantasies used to justify domination, but they swept into local psychology. The colonial gaze acted as a mirror, reflecting black distorted images. When Somalis look into the mirror, they saw themselves described as, first of all, more Arab-like. They were seen as less Negroid. They were seen as more civilized. They were seen as being closer to the Middle East than to sub-Saharan Africa. You see? So this critical analysis also enables us to examine this mirror we have to crack it and analyze its pieces. The desire to claim Arab identity is partly the desire to escape the colonial category of black, which had been defined as less human. This rejection, therefore, is not just about Somalia itself. It is about escaping a global anti-black gaze, you know? Another perspective is race inside Africa, hierarchies built in the shadows. One of the least discussed truths is that African societies have their own internal racial hierarchies. In East Africa, the Bantu has historically been used as a lower status label. You see, they have been tied to servitude or enslavement. You see, remember the colonialists say the Nilotes are primitives, the Bantus are people of low status, and the Kushites are Hamites, almost Caucasian, but superior Africans. Remember. So these Nilotes, these are Bantus who should be very close to the Kushites, are low status. And so in Somalia, some groups with Bantu ancestry were historically marginalized. You see, to reject being black becomes a way to reject being associated with these marginalized groups. Here, race is not a skin tone. It is a social category which is tied to power. This is why someone can be dark-skinned, African, and still insist they are not black. The word black is not describing color, it is describing class, you know? So this critical analysis is here to dissect these contradictions. Somalis are African and physically black, yet they reject blackness because the world has been poisoned by historical inequality. You see, this is not identity confusion, it is identity protection, you know? Another one is the myth of purity in a region built on movements. The Horn of Africa is one of the great crossroads of humanity. For thousands of years, cultures from Arabia, Persia, India, and the rest of Africa have intersected there. Yet, Somali identity is one often built on a narrative of purity, pure clan lines, pure ancestry, and pure culture, you know? But there is a very huge impossibility of purity because movement destroys purity, trade destroys purity, intermarriages destroys purity. Somalis themselves historically moved, migrated, mixed, and exchanged cultures. Thus, the Arab origin narrative becomes a way to impose order on a history that was actually chaotic and fluid. Purity is a myth used to clean up a messy human past, you know? And so, this myth of purity is just nothing. It's nothing. Because you move around, you relate, you intermarry, you relate. So that keeping your bloodline pure is something which is not achievable, you know? And also, if we try and look at Islam as a cultural anchor, another perspective, the fifth perspective, you see, Islam is central to Somali identity. For many Somalis, being Muslim is not just a religion. It is the foundation of culture, law, and morality. Because Islam arrived from Arabia, the region absorbed Arab cultural practices, which created a natural psychological connection. You see, the Arab was equal to religion, which was equal to prestige. You are Arab, you become a prestigious person. You are Arab, you become a religiously pure person, you know. But being black was considered non-Muslim in the historical perception, which being a non-Muslim, which also was equivalent to being low status, you know. Even though this perception is historically inaccurate, East Africa had deep Islamic history. The mental association remained. Again, thus, claiming Arab origins becomes a way of aligning oneself with the sacred. Rejecting black identity becomes rejecting what was historically seen as non-Muslim or culturally distant. Again, this is not grounded in reality, but in symbolism, you know. It is very important that we understand that there is a tension between what the body says and what the story says. The body says, I am African. Physically, we can see you are an African. But the story says, I am Arab. The body says, my feature reflects the Horn of Africa. But what does the narrative say? My ancestors came across the sea. Oh my. Identity is not determined by skin, but by narrative. And narratives are powerful enough to override physical truths. You know, we must therefore separate appearance from meaning, understand why meaning wins. The story allows escape, the body cannot. So people choose the story, you know. So according to this narrative, black people equals to inferior. And this assumption is inherited from global racism. Another one is Arab ancestry is equal to prestige. And this assumption as well is inherited from religion, class, and history. The third one is identity is pure and singular. This assumption ignores the messy truth of migration. The fourth is genealogy equals destiny. This assumption turns oral stories into fixed truths. You know, when we break these assumptions apart, the rejection becomes understandable, not admirable, but understandable. You know, it is not an act of hatred, it is an act of fear. Fear of being placed at the bottom of racial hierarchies, fear of losing dignity, fear of being seen through a colonial lens. Identity as a struggle is a struggle between pride and pain. The Somali rejection of black identity is not a mystery. It is a response to historical wounds, religious symbolism, colonial categories, and social hierarchies. You know, we need to understand that these claims and that the Somalis are claiming to do and to say about themselves, we need to understand that they are defenses, they are performances, they are negotiations with history. Somalis are African and visibly black, but the meaning of black has been shaped by centuries of inequality. To reject black identity is therefore not rejecting Africa. It is rejecting our global structures that associate blackness with inferiority. The task of the future is not to force Somalis to accept any label. It is to question why label, which is black label, carries such heavy historical pain that people run from it, even at the cost of contradicting their own origins. When the word black becomes a symbol of dignity instead of degradation, the identity struggle in Somalia and across Africa will begin to heal. So it's not like they are rejecting Africans. They are rejecting the things related to blackness. That's the thing the Somalis are trying to escape. But once you decide to go black, there's no going back. You decide that you are not black, there's no going back as well. Stay where you are. You said you are not black, now you are having problems, just stay where you are. If you decide to come this side, please come this side and stick to it. Otherwise, let's teach one another with love, care, and concern. No hatred, just good vibes, good energy. Yeah. This is EFK Original Documentaries. You like what I do, subscribe. Support me on Patreon. I'll surely appreciate. And see you in the next one.